What's going on, everyone? I am just a typical, average American here today to react to this video called How Canada Holds America's Survival Hostage. Which, let me tell you, if you're an American, that title will really sort of make you perk up, and this definitely got my attention because, to be honest, I think a lot of Americans really like to think that we don't depend on anyone and that we are in control and we determine all your survival and that kind of stuff. But it honestly sounds like that might not at all be the case. And, maybe we need Canada way more than we realize. So I really want to take a look at this and learn more about this. So let's see.
Everyone thinks America protects Canada, but Canada actually controls America's survival. And most Americans have no idea. But here's what nobody talks about. Canada quietly holds the keys to 3 things that could bring America to its knees overnight.
What?
I'm about to show you why geography made Canada the most powerful country America can never conquer. And
no, this is definitely not something I think that Americans are aware of. 3 things that could bring the United States to our knees? In a funny way, I would actually say that this sounds really interesting if it didn't sound so sort of threatening and ominous. But let's keep going.
why every US president secretly fears the day Canada figures this out.
Oh, wow.
Look, when most people think about US-Canada relations, they picture America as the big brother protecting little Canada. The US has 10 times Canada's population, 15 times the military budget, and the world's most powerful economy. But here's the thing about geography. It doesn't care about your military budget. And Canada sits on top of 3 geographic advantages so powerful that they could theoretically shut down half of America without firing a single shot. The craziest part? Most Canadians don't even realize the power they're sitting on.
What is this? So in particular, we're talking about geography? These are 3 geographical sort of attributes Canada has that could really screw over the United States. It's interesting because if you think about it, I think there's many examples of countries all over the world that have advantages that are natural and literally a part of their geography, and whether that's natural resources or whatever. And so, I don't know. It's definitely true that most of us Americans don't really know about the geography of Canada and how that affects us. And maybe we should, because this sounds really important.
The craziest part? Most Canadians don't even realize the power they're sitting on. Therefore, they've never used it. But geography doesn't lie.
What? Canada doesn't realize? I find that hard to believe. What? Okay, what does that mean? You guys could you have this leverage over the US, but you're not aware of it? And this random YouTube video has figured it out? Okay. You got my attention.
And the numbers I'm about to show you will change how you see North America forever.
The water weapon. The water weapon?
Let's start with the most terrifying one. Water. Canada controls 20% of the world's fresh water. That's more than any other country on Earth. But here's where it gets scary for America. The Great Lakes system, which provides drinking water to 40 million Americans, flows through Canada. Therefore, let me paint you a picture.
The Great Lakes, I'm familiar with. I didn't actually realize that we were that dependent upon it for our, fresh, drinking water. What, they say 40% of our water from the lakes? I did not know that.
Lake Superior, Lake Huron, Lake Erie, all of these connect through Canadian territory. The St. Lawrence Seaway that carries this water to the Atlantic runs right through Quebec. But it gets even worse. The Niagara River that connects Lake Erie to Lake Ontario, Canadian border? The Detroit River connecting Lake Huron to Lake Erie? Canadian border.
Wow.
Canada could theoretically control the water supply to Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, Buffalo, and dozens of other major American cities.
Whoa. 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 I didn't know it was going to be like this. This is like kind of intense. Like this, if I'm interpreting this correctly, is this actually suggesting that Canada could choke off our water supply, which, yeah, I never realized how dependent and sort of interconnected our water is with Canada, and that's very important, and certainly a good reason that we should be trying to get along with Canada, that's for sure. Um, but at the same time, it's like, man, if Canada just cut off 40% of our water, that would be beyond a statement. That would be like, from a humanitarian point of view, like probably condemned by everybody. And that's just such an extreme thing to do. I know the United States has done a lot of extreme things to Canada, certainly in the last year, and certainly tried to do a lot of damage and threats to Canada, but I don't know. This would be extreme if this were to ever happen.
And we're not just talking about drinking water. The Great Lakes system powers hydroelectric plants that provide electricity to millions of Americans. It's the shipping route that carries iron ore from Minnesota to steel plants in Pennsylvania. Therefore,
Okay.
if Canada ever decided to restrict water flow through their territory, they could
Whoa.
shut down American steel production, cut power to major cities, and create the worst water crisis in US history.
Why are what are we doing? Why are we pissing off Canada so much? I didn't know about any of this. We are incredibly dependent upon, at least Canada's cooperation and help in generating all this electricity and making sure the water supply remains. And it just, I already have like a huge problem with a lot of the stuff we have been doing to Canada in the last year. It's horrible. And then that was before even knowing about this. This just kind of raises it to a whole different level from. I think a lot of Americans are upset with what we've done to Canada, just from like a relationship point of view, and it's ruining our reputation and it's hurting people for no good reason. But this is like from a self-preservation point of view. This is like a different reason why we shouldn't be pissing off Canada, not just because it's wrong, but because it could come back to bite us.
But here's the geographic nightmare that keeps Pentagon planners awake at night. America can't do anything about it. You can't invade Canada to secure water rights. The border is 5,500 miles long,
Right.
longer than the distance from New York to London. And most of it runs through wilderness that would make Afghanistan look like a parking lot.
Wow.
Therefore, America's entire industrial heartland depends on water that flows through a country they can't control and can't conquer.
Oh my God, I can't believe this isn't sort of talked about more in the United States. Maybe it's because we don't like to acknowledge it? I don't know. I think most Americans are totally unaware of this. And yeah, it's not like there's no way this is going to really change in the future. We have just accepted the facts of geography, that we are dependent upon Canada for the water and the hydroelectrical generation, and for a long time that's not been any problem because we've been great allies. But now it's like really concerning, and it's actually, to me, shown that Canada has been demonstrating a lot of restraint in ways the US has not. We are perfectly fine with leveraging anything we have over Canada to get what we want, and Canada has this over us, and you guys haven't really, to my knowledge, really used this.
The geographic reality is simple. Canada holds America's most vital resource hostage, and there's nothing America can do about it except hope Canada stays friendly.
Oh my God. I actually remember like months ago there was some things about like Ontario cutting off power to like red states, or is that sort of what this is alluding to? That you guys could do that? Maybe that's because I heard a little bit about that. Oh my god. Okay, so that's the first thing. There's two more things. The energy stranglehold.
But
Oh my
water
God.
is just the beginning. Let's talk about energy. Canada supplies 20% of America's electricity. That's enough power for the entire state of California. But here's where the geography gets really interesting. Most of this power comes from hydroelectric dams in Quebec and British Columbia. And it all
Okay.
flows south through a handful of transmission lines that cross the border at very specific geographic points.
Okay.
Therefore, Canada could theoretically black out the entire northeastern United States just by flipping a few switches.
I mean, I don't. I want to believe this would never happen. It's actually kind of like how Batman has like kryptonite in his utility belt, if you know what I mean. Like in case Superman ever becomes evil. This is much like what that is. That's actually a pretty good analogy. It's like you guys have these levers you can pull if the United States ever gets irredeemably out of hand. Maybe we already have. Probably. But like certainly in like a violent, like if the United States, God forbid, if we ever actually tried to take over Canada, there's so many things you guys could do, like turn off our power to a lot of our states, turn off our water. Like, we should not be so cocky or like so excited to threaten Canada. Like, given all of this is, I did not know about all this. You guys have shown incredible restraint given the amount of leverage you have over us, and yeah, how much we depend on Canada for this stuff. I think most Americans have no idea. I had no idea.
But it gets worse. Canada is also America's largest oil supplier. They send 4 million barrels of oil per day to the US through pipelines that run from Alberta to refineries in Texas, Illinois, and Oklahoma.
And it's so funny because like Donald Trump says Canada is taking advantage of us. That's like the rationale for a lot of the tariffs and stuff. And it's like, it seems to me we get a magnificent benefit from Canada. We get electricity and water and oil, and all we have to do is be a reasonable and friendly trading partner. That's all we have to do, is not screw everyone over, and we can't even do that.
And here's the geographic choke point that should terrify every American. Most of this oil flows through a single pipeline system called Enbridge. If Canada ever shut down Enbridge, gas prices in America would double overnight. Therefore,
Oh
the
my
entire
God.
American economy would grind to a halt. But here's what makes this even more dangerous. Canada's energy infrastructure is designed to flow south. The geography forces it.
Wow.
The Canadian Shield, that massive granite formation that covers half of Canada, creates natural barriers that funnel energy resources toward the US border.
Okay.
Therefore, Canada's entire energy economy is built around supplying America. But that also means Canada has built the perfect geographic weapon without even realizing it.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's actually kind of sad because it's like the United States and Canada form this like perfect symbiotic relationship. Like, it's perfect. So it's really unfortunate what we've been doing. And like I keep saying, we definitely don't realize like how much we are depending upon Canada to not take advantage of these energy pipelines and oil pipelines and water, and apparently there's even more stuff that we haven't even heard about yet.
And unlike oil from the Middle East that has to cross oceans, Canadian energy flows through pipelines and power lines that are impossible to defend. The US-Canada border crosses mountains, forests, and wilderness areas where a small team could sabotage critical infrastructure and disappear without a trace.
It's scary, and it sounds like Canada could quite literally flip a switch and turn this stuff off.
Therefore, America's energy security depends on 5,500 miles of undefended border running through some of the most remote terrain on Earth. But here's the really crazy part. This geographic vulnerability is getting worse, not better. As America transitions to renewable energy, they're becoming even more dependent on Canadian hydroelectric power, And as American
Oh.
oil production shifts to harder to extract sources, Canadian oil becomes more critical. Therefore,
Oh.
every year that passes, Canada's geographic stranglehold on American energy gets tighter.
The Arctic Gateway.
But the most dangerous geographic advantage Canada has over America is one most people have never heard of: the Arctic. Climate change is melting the polar ice cap, and that's opening up new shipping routes through the Arctic Ocean.
Actually, in the last couple months, I think this has become more of a well-known talking point. Like a lot of countries are really becoming obsessed with this opening Arctic trade route thing. So I've heard a little bit about this.
Therefore, these routes could become the most important trade highways in the world. And guess who controls access to them? Canada. The Northwest Passage, the Arctic shipping route that connects the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, runs entirely through Canadian territorial waters.
Wow.
Therefore, Canada could theoretically control shipping between Asia and Europe, cutting America out of the most lucrative trade routes on the planet.
Oh my God. That is incredibly significant. That's crazy.
But here's where the geography gets really interesting. The Arctic isn't just about shipping, it's about resources. The Arctic Ocean
Oh.
contains an estimated 13% of the world's oil reserves and 30% of its natural gas.
Really?
And most of the land-based access to these resources runs through Canadian territory. Therefore, as the
Oh
ice
my
melts and these
God.
resources become accessible, Canada will control access to some of the largest untapped energy reserves on Earth.
I know Canada has had a lot of success on the world stage as a country. I really didn't appreciate how much natural resources and how much geography benefits Canada. Like you guys have a lot of really, really important stuff and a lot of access to stuff.
But it gets even more strategic. The Arctic is becoming the new front line in the competition between America, Russia, and China. Russia is building military bases across their Arctic coastline. China is investing billions in Arctic shipping infrastructure. And America? America has to ask Canada for permission to access most of the Arctic. Therefore, Canada sits between America and the most strategically important region of the 21st century.
Oh my God. And I'm sure that makes Trump very, very mad. That's like one of the reasons he wants Greenland, right? Because of it's in like the Arctic region, I think. And also because Greenland has like tons of natural resources that would become ours, and it would like double the size of the United States empire. And there's lots of selfish reasons that Donald Trump wants Greenland, but I think some of it has to do with these trade routes.
But here's the geographic nightmare scenario that keeps military planners awake. What if Canada ever aligned with China or Russia? China is already Canada's second largest trading partner. They're investing heavily in Canadian mining and energy companies. And they're building infrastructure to ship Canadian resources directly to Asia through the Arctic.
And Canada, Mark Carney just like visited China and had talks with the president. And I know that's becoming a thing. Like Canada, China, the relationship is growing.
Therefore, Canada could theoretically cut America out of Arctic trade entirely and redirect their resources to China instead. And there's nothing America could do about it. The Arctic is too remote to invade.
It's funny because that's literally sort of what's starting to happen. And Trump responded by threatening tariffs on Canada. If you dare to do trade with China, if you dare to benefit yourselves, if you dare to go against American interests, that sort of happened. And we just responded by threatening you, which is very typical now, unfortunately.
Too vast to control and too important to ignore. Therefore, America's future dominance depends on a country they can't control maintaining access to a region they can't reach.
Yeah. And it does seem like at the beginning of Trump's second term, like Canada, Mark Carney tried to kind of see if we could establish some kind of new trade deal between Canada and the US, if we could get along, if we could work this out. And now it seems like so much time has gone on and the United States has really broken its trust with Canada, and Now it just seems like Canada is kind of moving on. Like you gave us a chance, we ignored it, or like we're insulting really towards it. And now Canada is just like moving on and establishing other trade relationships, and it kind of goes along with what they just said. Oh, chapter 4. Oh, there's more. Chapter 4. The mineral monopoly.
But there's one more geographic advantage that makes Canada truly dangerous: critical minerals. Canada controls massive reserves of lithium, cobalt, nickel, and rare earth elements.
Wow, Canada has... Man, you guys have it going on. All these like naturally occurring resources. Like that's really fortunate.
These are the materials that power electric car batteries, solar panels, and wind turbines.
Right.
Therefore, as America transitions to renewable energy, they're becoming completely dependent on Canadian minerals. But here's where the geography creates a perfect storm. Most of these minerals are located in northern Canada, the same remote regions that are impossible to defend and impossible to invade. And China knows this. They're already investing billions in Canadian mining operations, buying up mineral rights, and building infrastructure to ship these materials directly to Asia. Therefore, Canada could wake up one day and realize they control the materials that power the global economy. But
oh my God. So Canada already has mineral like contracts with China? Is that a thing?
here's the really scary part for America. Canada doesn't need American permission to sell these minerals to China. The geography works in China's favor. Arctic shipping routes make it cheaper to ship Canadian minerals to Asia than to American factories. Therefore, market forces are already pulling Canadian resources away from America. And if America ever tried to pressure Canada to restrict mineral exports to China, Canada could retaliate by cutting off water, energy, or Arctic access.
You know, God forbid it ever comes to that, but like I said, Americans have no idea, like, sort of the stranglehold, sort of the low-key, quiet stranglehold Canada. It's like you have a knife to the back of our neck and we, like, don't know it. Or maybe that's a little too violent or aggressive, but if it ever actually came to this, clearly, let's be real here, like, there are many levers Canada could pull to screw over the United States, and you'd never know it based on how we act in a way that we are invincible. We act like we depend on nobody and that we're invincible, and it's just not true.
Therefore, America is trapped in a geographic dependency they can't escape and can't control.
Chapter 5, the modern reality.
Now, you might be thinking, but Canada would never use these advantages against America. They're allies. And you're probably right. But here's the thing about geography. It doesn't care about current politics.
Well, I was going to say, the United States has no problem using whatever the hell we want to do against Canada or Trump. And so, who knows? I wouldn't rule, at this point, as sad as it is, I wouldn't rule anything out.
Alliances change, governments change, but geography is forever. And as Canada becomes more aware of their geographic advantages, they're starting to use them. And in the game of global power, the one who controls the resources controls the future. America may have the bigger military, but Canada has something even stronger: geography. If you thought Canada was just the friendly neighbor up north, think again. This is just the beginning. I'm diving deep into how geography shapes power, conflict, and survival across the globe. And trust me, the next twist will blow your mind.
Oh my God. What a video. I mean, I enjoyed it, but at the same time, it was tough to enjoy because it's literally like how the U.S. could get screwed over, but maybe we deserve it, or I don't know. It's so crazy the times we're living in, and as I like to say, I would rather know these types of things than be ignorant and be unaware, and that's crazy. I had no idea about this. I think more Americans need to like learn about this stuff and realize the truth and lose some of our ego. That's unbelievable. And it's sad because it's all actually works out perfectly fine when the US and Canada are getting along, but like now and moving into the future, I don't know if we're going to get along or what that's going to look like, and if any of these three things that hold our survival hostage are going to actually matter or be used. Um, that's to be seen, I suppose. But this was very informative, if not disturbing. So, anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts about all this, especially if you're Canadian, if you know about any of this or have any opinions on any of this. That'd be cool to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canada and learning about Canadian things that I've never seen before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.